Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Let's talk about how to stop being triggered by an avoidant or reduce that. I've made the anxious one as well. If you are someone who gets triggered by anxious, preoccupied folks or someone who's fearful, leaning anxious, I made that video as well. Today, we're talking about you being triggered by an avoidant or fearful, leaning dismissive. The first one is actually don't take what they say personally when they're triggered. An example could be, maybe you guys are in some sort of argument or fight and they might say something like, this is why I don't like relationships, or this is why I'll never commit, because we're always fighting. And there's truth to it, but you don't want to take it so personally, right? You don't want to say, I'm a bad person, I'm not able to be loved. That's not what it is. You want to hear what the trigger is underneath that. They're saying, because we fight so much, I am triggered. That's what they're really saying. And you can apologize. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I wish you wouldn't say it so harshly. I wish you've told me. I wish we had a more constructive conversation about it. But yeah, that makes sense. I can reduce that, or I can adjust myself. But you don't want it to take as I'm unlovable. I'm not a person who cannot be committed to, because that's not true. And just because they're reacting that way, that doesn't mean that's the reality of how everybody will react. It's important to remember that, because they are insecurely attached. And being with an avoidant is very difficult. Just like being with an anxious person is very difficult, right? You both are insecurely attached if that's your scenario. And it's really, really important to be aware of that. The next one is you want to call them out on their patterns when things are more calm, and rapport is built. A lot of you guys are afraid to do this. And we've touched on this on my channel before, but I really think some of you guys still are not doing it. Calling them out is not saying like, you don't care about me. This is why, we can never be together. Like, you don't love me enough. Not something like that. But you can mention, by the way, I did notice that after we had an argument, you were pretty withdrawn. Is that something that you need to regulate? What's going on there? Because that's not something that I'm familiar with. Can you fill me in on that? You don't want to tell them this is why you do it. That's not what I mean by call them out on their patterns. You're just mentioning, I noticed this pattern. Can you fill me in on it? And maybe they can say, oh yeah, I do that because I'm stressed. Then you have the answer. Or if they say, no, I don't do that. And you can say, okay, but I have noticed that you did. Can we talk about that? Right? Because you don't want to back down as well, but you don't want to say, this is why you do it. That's not really fair. You want to let them be able to be introspective of themselves, because it's also going to help them heal. Now, if you really do feel like you guys are close enough that you can just tell them this is why this is happening, you can. Sometimes my significant other and me, we do that to each other. Not really attachment style, but it could be like, I notice you're stressed and I notice you have been, watching TV more often. Is everything okay? Right? Whatever it is. Like, it's a pattern. And I had mentioned, or he has mentioned, for example, it's probably because you're stressed. If you've been together for like years, maybe you can say it a little bit, but still you want to be mindful, because it can be disrespectful. So you want to say it in a way where you are coming across as, I care about you. I want you to be okay. I'm here to make things easier for you. The next one is when they do begin to detach. Remind yourself it's not always because you did something wrong. Avoidants detach for many reasons, and it's not always their partner. Sometimes they're just busy. Sometimes they're tired. Sometimes they have so many things going on. A lot of us do, right? A lot of us have so many things going on. And not all the time are we detaching, folks in general, because you're done with your partner. Sometimes you just need to rest. You need to relax. Sometimes you want time away from everybody. And it's not personal. If anything, when they come back and reset themselves, they are much more loving and they're much more happy. This is a little bit of a sub point, but I do feel like you guys like insights of my life and my relationships to some extent. I'm never going to give you like every detail. That's unnecessary, I feel. But my significant other, like, he is in finance, and sometimes he has to go on business trips for whatever reason. And I actually like when he goes on business trips, as long as they're not too long, because then I miss him a lot. But the first day or two, it's so refreshing because I get to do things that I can't always do. It, like, not like that, but it's like I get to, like, me and him eat kind of differently. I eat like really small portions compared to him. He eats a lot of, like, he likes a lot of stuff. Like, I'm more of a picky eater. And so sometimes what he wants to eat, I don't want to eat. And so I just like my small little portion with like all the specific stuff I like to eat. And when he's away, I get to just make that, or really focus on that meal instead of making that and his meal. And it's not like I like cooking, but sometimes it's just so nice that I get to really just focus on that meal. I love doing that, and that's fun for me. And I'm sure he likes being away for his own reasons as well. But as the day goes on, or the days, depending on how long he's away, I miss him and I want him back. And when he's back, it's even more fulfilling. And so sometimes that, it's not necessarily detachment, but it's sometimes just space apart, can really help couples to feel more comfortable and really realize this is what I like, right? If the detachment persists, however, which is number 4, ask them what is causing the detachment. Are you stressed? Are you busy? Is there something that I can do? I've noticed that you've been a little bit detached. Are you okay? Anything like that. The next one is you want to pay attention to your own narratives surrounding their behavior. And sometimes the narratives might not even be yourself. It might start out through the lens of them. So let me explain. Let's say, for example, let's talk about them being detached, since that's what we've been talking about, or just like busy, away, and they're not texting you as much. Maybe your narrative is that they're enjoying themselves without you, when in actuality, they're probably really, really, really busy. Your own narrative might be, I'm unlovable, so of course they don't like being around me, and so they're happy to be without me, which is not true at all. It's not true. But that's your narrative. Or your narrative might be like, maybe you're deflecting how you really feel, or how you feel about yourself. And you might say, they're so hurt and they're so wounded, that's why they're not talking to me. When that might be true, but in actuality, it might not be wounded or hurt, or it might not be a trigger necessarily. Maybe they're really bothered by a difficult conversation they had with their boss, and they just need time to regulate themselves. It doesn't mean they're wounded or broken. Like, it may, but it's the way you word it it might show how little you know about them and how much they don't trust you and how much you don't trust them. And so understanding the narratives in your mind might help you to understand where you're at with your partner. The next one is take more time to respond when activated. It is difficult. And I know a lot of anxious folks, this can be difficult because when you're upset about something, you want to push for clarity. You want to have that reassurance. You want to text more, and you're allowed to do those things, but it's just managing them a little bit, like be a little slower to it to some extent, because sometimes the more you push, the other person feels more uncomfortable and it's harder for them to know what to say. And so slow down your responses, give a little bit of space with purpose, not like to test them or anything, but just to give like even 5 more minutes just to think for yourself. It might not even have anything to do with them, but you want to be a better person. You want to communicate better, and you want your partner to feel less triggered. And I understand that about you, which is why it can be helpful to just take a little bit of time before you answer. The next one is build tolerance for space. I'm not saying, because some of you guys are like so much space, it's honestly ridiculous for me. And so no, I'm not saying like go like 10 months without talking. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying like, I don't know, go, if you guys are on a business trip, like just like I was saying, like my significant other goes on business trips. I'm not expecting him to text me like 10 times during his presentation. I want him to focus on his presentation. I do. That doesn't mean he's not going to text me at all that day. It doesn't mean he's not going to call me at all. It just means that I know very likely his presentations and everyone's presentations are going to be a little bit longer than when he typically gets off work. I'm aware of that because afterwards they tend to have more meetings and whatever it is. And I don't expect him to call me all the time. I mean, even in general, I don't, but he is pretty good with talking throughout work. But I know when he's on a business trip, it's not always available. And that's the same thing. Understanding that there will be moments where space is just part of it, and not needing immediate replies all the time, or not overanalyzing that communication. Just engage in your own life is very helpful. And the last one is check your own attachment patterns. What is going on with your attachment that might be why you perceive this person as more avoidant than they are, or make them be more triggered than they typically are. So let's go ahead and summarize. The first one is you don't want to take what they say when they're triggered personally. You want to call them out on their patterns. When they begin to detach, you want to remind yourself it's not always about you. If the detachment persists, ask them what's causing the detachment. Pay attention to your own narratives about their behavior. Take more time to respond when activated. You want to build tolerance for space, and you want to check your own attachment patterns. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.